All right, now with us on Tennis Channel Inside In, joined now by a player who is currently playing, doing some Tennis Channel broadcast work as well, former national champion at Stanford and former junior #1 in the world at the time. It was Bradley Klahn. Bradley, welcome to the show. Long time coming. Appreciate you taking time to do this.
Thanks so much for having me on, Mitch.
The initial start of this. So everybody that starts broadcasting, it's they get thrown to the fire. You get a chance to call a lot of matches. You got to come in at weird hours. How you been liking the process of calling matches, just getting thrown to the wolves?
I love it. It's been a great experience for me, especially when I've been injured, just being able to stay involved in tennis, look at it from a different angle. It's been really fun to learn from some of the great broadcasters that we have here at Tennis Channel and pick their brain about nuances. It's a whole new skill. I've really enjoyed doing a little bit of both, done some work at T2, calling matches by myself, doing a little mix of the host and analyst role, and also at Tennis Channel doing the more traditional player analyst role. It's two separate skill sets, I'd say.
How did the opportunity come to be? Was it something that you sought out? Did you get approached? I'm always fascinated to see. And I know you're someone that's, a life breather of tennis and you want to just stay involved in the game, but how did that opportunity come to be?
Yeah, so I was injured in 2021 and was trying to get involved at the U.S. Open, start there, and was just going out to the U.S. Open on a whim. Like, I was going to go see my buddies. I wasn't playing at the time, but they were out there, so I was going to go spend a few days. I'd started hitting again for the first time in a year and was trying to get some of the excitement and passion back that can get sucked out from being injured. And they were short broadcasters in New York, and I just jumped right into the booth. I remember getting the call literally on my flight to New York saying, do you want to get in?
Yeah.
And I did 9 straight days in New York. Loved it. That was definitely thrown right into the fire. I think I showed up in New York and was calling the first match at 11. And then from there, it just was like, oh, well, this is something that I really enjoy. I think that my mind, it's really fascinating to see the court and see the matches from a more objective point of view, as opposed to being on the court yourself, and you just see different strategies, what players are trying to do against each other that you might not pick up when you're so invested in it yourself.
Yeah, that's a point that a lot of players that are currently still active bring up, in that you're able to see it from a different perspective. And the flip side is you're offering something that, people, obviously general people like myself, don't have the ability to do, but also even former players, even if they're legends, they're not currently on tour. So you're seeing your counterparts and you're able to offer insight because you do share a locker room and you see them on the practice courts and you've competed against them as well.
Yeah, you're up to date on, the game has evolved. The game is constantly evolving. I've even noticed that when I first started on tour to now, how much it's changed.
Yeah.
And every time I've come back from a surgery, I'm like, well, this is different.
Yeah.
So it's constantly evolving, and it helps being out there. A lot of the guys, even today, I'm commentating, calling Sonego and Sinner, and I played Sonego last year in Cincinnati. We look at Bublik and Struff, and I've played both those guys. So you can give that firsthand experience of what it's like to face them, also what their strategy is maybe against you versus someone else. How do they handle different moments in the match? Everyone handles pressure a little differently. Some guys, everybody gets nervous if they tell you otherwise. They're lying. But it's how you handle it. So you can add those nuances to the broadcast that I think are interesting to the viewer.
Were you somebody that always felt like you'd be involved in tennis? Because I know not just broadcasting, but you've done some volunteer coaching when you've been sidelined, and it seems like that's just been a part of who you are. Is that just something you see yourself doing, just always being involved in tennis?
Funny enough, no. I went to Stanford and got my degree in economics thinking that I give myself options to not have to stay in tennis if I don't want to, and just I think that's something cool about going there, but also playing tennis, traveling around the world. You get this, cultural, worldly experience and realize that there's so much to offer. That said, I still love playing. When I was injured, I just wanted to find ways. I could never fully go and get another job, even when I missed 21 months in 2015, 2016, I still had that urge to, I wanted to give it another run, and I'm so glad I did. So I was trying to find ways, like, how can I stay involved in tennis? How can I keep my mind sharp, see the game, but also, like, I need time to make sure that I'm keeping up with the rehab, and just that mental and physical process to come back from a surgery is a big hurdle. You see a lot of guys on tour struggle with it. On both sides, men and women.
So I wanted to go back to your origin story. You've got the Midwest roots, so I knew we got along in that regard. Your mom played tennis at Iowa, and you've got family back in the Midwest, but you've grown up in SoCal, which is a hotbed for young junior development. You got to number 1 at the U18 level in juniors, and it's an incredible accomplishment. But I just want to know what your attitude was for your junior career, because a lot of players, people past and present, had differing attitudes of it, and you were able to parlay that into a great college career and then a good pro career. What was your attitude in juniors? Were you chasing that top spot? Were you just riding the wave? Did you have a bigger picture in mind?
I had college tennis on my mind and getting a scholarship. I went to public school. I didn't start tennis till I was 11.
Wow,
I played a lot of other sports.
That's way later than most. Even,
Yeah. I loved all the other sports. I actually picked up tennis because I was playing baseball, basketball, and soccer, and I gave up soccer. Had to choose between baseball and soccer, and they were kind of pitting each other together. And I was like, I remember having to
baseball,
miss
soccer, and you're like, I got tennis.
I remember having to miss practice to go play All-Stars in baseball, and like coach didn't like that, and soccer was the third sport. I was like, well, all right.
And this is like age 10?
This was 10. The summer I was 10. I was like, well, all right, then, screw this. I'm not going to play soccer. And I needed something else to do. So I picked up tennis. I'd go down and play with a buddy of mine, like from baseball. We'd just go down to the courts. I hadn't had any real instruction. We'd go play 2 out of 3 sets. And I was hooked. I started taking some lessons, and I mean, everything quickly. By the time I got to high school, that's when I gave up every other sport and focused on tennis.
Wow. And then you took to it. I mean, there's a lesson in there in the sense that you were a late bloomer. You didn't really specialize until later. I mean, looking at Ben Shelton, that was a similar story with him. Played football most of his time and then got to tennis. I think over-specialization can be a thing. But when you got to that point where you were succeeding and you were doing well at a high level, I'm assuming you had your pick of the litter for colleges. Like, what was it about Stanford that jumped off the page other than their legacy?
Yeah, just the combination of academics and athletics at Stanford was
Did your parents
unmatched.
have that? Like, were they like, we urge you, like, we want you to go to a good school if possible too, not just the tennis hotbed?
Yeah, it was always use your tennis to get into the best school you can and get a great education, and ultimately set me up for my future, whether that be in tennis, whether that be in business, whatever I wanted to do. It was all about giving myself the opportunity to choose what I liked. And tennis is a hard profession to break into, and it's tough to make money in tennis and really make a living. And so certainly if you play the odds, it's a small percentage chance, but I still wanted to play pro. I just knew started college right when I turned 18. I was 21 when I graduated. I was a skinny kid that was not physically or mentally mature enough to go play on the tour. I don't think I played my first future until maybe right before I went to college.
Wow.
Or going into my senior year. So it was like futures weren't a big thing for me. I played some once I was in college in the summer, but I really didn't, it was one of those, I wanted to go pro, but I don't think I really believed it or like was really sold on it until my sophomore year.
It took that college experience to kind of develop you and, get the most out of your tennis career, not just because of the singles success and winning the title, but you were part of a team. Not in the sense of being a doubles team, but also just that team culture with all the guys in the locker room. Like that, cultivating the best out of you is something that I think gets glossed over. It's starting to get more noticed now because the college tennis pipeline is thriving. But
yeah, it's nice to see college tennis players proving time and time again that it is a viable path. For so long, you're almost frowned upon and written off if you went to college.
Did you feel that like in the locker room? I mean, with the other players, was maybe not outwardly said, but was there that attitude like, oh, college, we're not sure?
I'd maybe say more on the coach's side
of
things. I never really got the feeling too much from the players. I certainly grew up, my peers, Steve Johnson was been one of my good friends on tour and here since we were 12 years old.
Yeah,
he certainly had a stellar college career. Didn't
like
hurt him.
It's like Steve. If he would have just gone pro or not gone to college, I could have a couple more national titles.
I think we both pushed each other.
Yeah,
I think that it's very helpful to have a guy of his level growing up in our backyard. Like, we played doubles together in juniors. We played, I can't even count how many times in college, and we both pushed each other. Obviously, they got the 4 team titles. I had the NCAAs in singles my sophomore year, and then he went on that historic tear.
And it was interesting too. You mentioned pushing each other. That historic tear, it wasn't smooth sailing. Like, he was battle tested a lot.
Yeah.
Like, that was the crazy thing about that run.
It was not all smooth for him.
Yeah. So at that point, I mean, you graduated at 21, and then you're like, I'm going to chase his pro career. It's kind of hard to think about this now, but did you see yourself still playing tennis at this point in your career? Or was it, I'm just going to take a chance, see how this goes. It could be a short ride.
I went in with the mindset that I was just going to give it a try. I had no idea where it was going to go. I loved playing tennis. I wanted to see it through, but I also knew that I had this degree from Stanford that was a great plan B. And no, I didn't go into it thinking like we're going to have a 10, 12-year career. I broke through at the U.S. Open in the summer of 2012, right when I graduated. It was a wild card, qualified into qualifying, won my first round, and it was one of those aha moments where it's like, oh, I can actually play at this level. Like, maybe this will turn out to be more than just a short blip on the radar and move on to something else. That said, it took a long time for me to actually learn to be a pro, and not that I wasn't professional. I thought that I always worked hard, and that's really what I built my career on, was being the one who was willing to get up at 7 a.m. and go put in the extra hours. But I think it was more believing in that. I lacked a little bit of that self-belief that I could do it day in, day out, and win at the challenger level and work my way up. And it took me a year from when I graduated until things really clicked. I'd gotten to about 180 and had a really tough clay court, grass court season. Didn't win many matches. The first time I did the full clay court, then grass. I stayed in Europe for 7 straight weeks, and I was mentally fried. Yeah. And you learn a lot about yourself over there. And I came back, and I just had a sit down with myself, and was like, if this is what you want to do, then do it. We're gonna go after it. Yeah. And that mindset, it wasn't easy. And I think I went on a tear. I finally broke through and made a final my first week on the hard courts, and then it felt like it snowballed. But to get, I had to save match points in the first round of that challenge. Like, I remember it very well because it was such a turning point in my career.
More with Bradley Klahn here on Tennis Channel Inside In. I think the point about the challengers is a great one, because you got to learn how to win as much as anything. Yeah. How to put stuff on the line, and the pro level, the ATP Tour level, is just so tough. And the best of the best, there's only one winner every week. Right. I think the Challenger Tour, and you've seen players come through that developed those skills and then had success on the ATP level. Are there players your era that you kind of saw on that ground floor before others, where you were like, it doesn't shock you that they were able to go on to success at the ATP level?
I think people don't realize how similar the Challenger level and the ATP level actually is.
Like skill-wise.
Skill-wise. And I'm not talking about the top guys because the
right.
top 10, top 20, like they have separated themselves. And I think there's actually more parity. Like you're seeing more quote-unquote upsets in some of these 250s, 500s,
even
1,000.
Struff, Karatsa making runs. Like these are guys that had played challengers not too long ago, but I'm sure the tour realizes how good these guys are and what they can do out there.
Yeah, I think these top guys are a lot more vulnerable early on than maybe we've seen in a while. But it's hard. Like those top guys believe. I think the biggest thing is it's confidence. It's coming down to belief. They're getting the opportunities. It's hard to break through. I've had a few conversations with people. Just it's almost easier once you break into the top 100 to stay there than actually getting in there. There's more opportunities. The points are bigger at the tour events. Certainly, sometimes I hate to say it, but sometimes it seems like the people at the challenger level are a little bit hungrier to try and get up there, whereas like you can have a down week at the tour level.
True.
You go and, if you go and make a quarter or say you make a final at a 250, 150 points, you're a quarter of the way to keeping yourself in the top 100 for the year. Like if you work backwards and it's straight math, you need about 600 points a year to stay in the top 100. And that's always been, not saying that should be the goal, like to want to push forward and keep progressing, but the top 100 has been the benchmark of what a professional is. You keep yourself in the Grand Slams, and you need 600 points to stay in the top 100. Like one final.
I think money too. I mean, you have to play a factor in this too, especially like how the prize money has gone up. The first round of a Grand Slam now, what that's worth and what those early round matchups are. I do think you see really hungry players that go through qualifiers that are even lucky losers. And I don't want to say top players aren't motivated, but if a player's coming in banged up, the hunger is not there that specific week.
Right.
Those upsets might not be as shocking when you take all that into account.
Right. Definitely. And I think the pros recognize that it's a long season and you have to try and stay as stable as possible because the tour and the swings in different countries and different surfaces, it is a lot of variables that can provide for that roller coaster.
It's like a great
emotions.
life, but it's also a pretty stressful, strenuous life.
Yeah. It's tough. It's great. It's hard, but nothing. It's the old cliche that nothing in life that's worthwhile is easy, and you get to see some amazing cities, and these are places that I might never get back to, and now you don't necessarily realize that when you're younger. You go to the U.S. Open, you go to Wimbledon. I remember playing my first Wimbledon main draw in 2014. You're like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I'm going to be here for 10 more years, and I've played 2 other main draws in Wimbledon with various injuries, whatnot, but like, you never know when like the professional athlete's life is short. We see it across sports, football, basketball, baseball here in the States. Like generally the lifespan of a professional athlete is small. In tennis, you can control, like you can go down and play features and you're not at the whim of a team trying to sign you, but it's still.
And the health issue. I mean, we saw with Kontaveit retiring at 27, number 2 in the world 2 years ago, and now retired. It's tough, and I do think it's gotten better, but where do you see, I guess, financially speaking, where the game and the tour is for players in that mid-level range, like 60 down? It is unfortunate that still it goes without saying that the 60th best basketball player in the world, everyone knows their name, they're making tons of money.
Right.
I do think it's gotten better, though. So how do you see where we are tennis-wise for that mid-class and mid to low class?
Yeah, I think you're continuing to see improvements across the tour. Certainly the Grand Slams are focusing the majority of their prize money increases on the early rounds. You're seeing some bumps up in qualifying. ATP Challenger Tour announced their first prize money increase at the 75 and 100 level, I believe, this year for the first time in a while. That had been pretty stagnant. So, look, I think the tour is certainly recognizing that to have a healthy, sustainable tour, you do need more than just the top guys. Certainly, it's tough because the top guys are the ones that they draw the eyeballs. They have put in the work. They drive revenue. Like I mean,
it's true.
Call it what it is.
True. Yeah.
Everybody wants to watch Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer first, Nadal, Djokovic. Like they were the
wild card concept exists for that reason. Like,
Right.
and it's good for everybody. If Federer, I mean, his example, he's retired, but it's say like Andy Murray, for example, when he was lower ranked. Wild card's great for him. If you're in that tournament, it's going to help everybody involved. And there is that argument that goes with no one really deserves a wild card, so it's up to the tournament to bring the most eyeballs in.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the tournament pays the prize money.
Yeah.
They have to.
Yeah.
Like, they're in it for a business too.
Yeah.
They need to try and turn a profit. And what's going to bring sponsors, media, fans? What's going to put butts in seats?
Yeah.
It's the top guys, the stars. I mean, that's why like a guy like Nick Kyrgios brings a lot of money in.
Yeah.
And I think you're seeing something like that's why I think like Francis Tiafoe is great for the sport, and obviously as an American and seeing his story and seeing him finally be able to crack the top 10.
Yeah.
It's awesome, but I just think he's another guy that and he does it in such a positive, joyous way that's entertaining but still like fun loving, and it's just hard not to
Of course.
it's hard not to root for him. Like he's just a great guy. So I think like having guys like that are continuing to bring eyeballs to the sport, which ultimately is going to generate the revenue.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think we've gotten to a better place, and Rome wasn't built in a day, as the adage goes. So it's getting there. Doubles has been an avenue as well, and starting to see people make livings there. American Austin Krajicek getting to number 1 in the world was great to see. I did have one thing on doubles though. So guy producing, friend of yours, Jeff Chisever, who I know you guys crossed paths back in the day. He told me that he didn't mention the set score. So, but he was always been talking doubles because that's what he played at Cal. And he said that, and I wanted your take on this, the partners have to have a good like fist bump reaction. Like that's key to everything. So
it helps being great friends with your partner.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough that my best friend in college was Ryan Thatcher, and he was also my doubles partner for 3.5 years. So, look, it just helps building that team chemistry. I mean, you look at the best doubles team in history. Bob and Mike Bryan had.
You can say that's unfair, right? Like it's just not fair.
But you got a built-in partner coming out of the womb, so makes things a little easier. But it's true. Like, I think the best doubles teams like good communication.
Yeah, it's so true. Wrapping this up, looking at your career now, and you're still going and battling injuries, unfortunately, but still motivated to compete. What does drive you to keep going and finish this story of your pro career on your own terms?
I think you nailed it right there. It's been finishing my pro career on my own terms, being able to enjoy the tournaments one last time. And if it's not the last time, like great, but like almost with this mindset of, I've missed the better part of 4 years with injuries. I've been a professional for 11 years, but I've only been on tour probably 7 of that. And so trying to go and like understand these experiences are special. They don't last forever as much as you might think when you're 22, 23, you don't see that bigger picture. But I think I've lived through it all. I've had the ups and downs, and I start to see more of the bigger picture of not just like this one match is the end all be all, but how does this fit into my life in general, and try and have fun off the court, go explore the cities, and just take advantage. And when the time comes, the time comes.
It's great, and I think it's a lesson to a lot of people in perseverance that you have the opportunity to keep pushing, and you're going to have to sacrifice a lot, and it's going to be tough, but ultimately it is worth it to write the end of your own story. And you've been a part of an American boom of tennis, I would say, because the last couple of years we've seen different generations of now even younger guys coming up that have just continued to push. So I'm hopeful that 20-year slam drought's going to break at some point.
I hope so. It's been fun to see. I remember when I first started on tour, being the young guy and seeing the older Americans that were wrapping up their career, and just blink, and all of a sudden you're the old veteran that's figuring out how to tie a bow on his career, and you see all these young up-and-comers take over the tour. But I'm certainly hopeful. It's great to see 2 Americans back in the top 10.
Yeah, could be a time for Wimbledon too. I mean, I don't know if you have any quick takes on that with Wimbledon coming up, but obviously Djokovic, the resounding favorite. But I was going through my list of players that can make a run, and there's some Americans on there. Fritz, Korda even has looked good.
Yeah,
you know,
Korda, nice win over Francis yesterday on the grass. It's hard to go against Djokovic. In any Grand Slam, I'd say right now, I think he's still the clear favorite until he proves otherwise at any Grand Slam, but particularly on the grass, I just don't think that these younger players, they're great ball strikers, phenomenal talents, but nobody's really shown the understanding of grass court tennis and the differences from the clay and hard that, I mean, Novak's just mastered.
I heard an interview with Darian King once where he talked about Djokovic, and he put it perfectly. I wish I would have thought of it, honestly. It's like no one knows a court geometrically better than him.
Yeah.
Like just and grass is the one where it's the hardest to figure out because you just don't play on it. Even Alcaraz, you've seen kind of be a little unsure movements and how to approach different things. And Djokovic is just everything is like a chessboard.
Yeah.
He knows all the right moves.
Yeah. I think, has he not lost there since 2017 or
17 when he retired with an injury.
Yeah. Okay. That's just an absurd stat.
It is. It's crazy. Well, Bradley Klahn, this was great. Very, very last thing here on Tennis Channel Inside In. I wanted to just know if we had any hobbies. You're a tough person to track down. I think golf, because I saw you at the Waste Management Open.
So I'm getting back into golf. My girlfriend's got the itch as well. We've gone to a few tournaments this year, and we were out visiting her parents in Scottsdale and came across the NCAAs there in Stanford. My alma mater was playing out there, so we went over a few days and started, make a few trips to Top Golf. And I haven't played as much with my back, but I definitely am starting to play a little bit more and more. And when I hang up the sticks, you'll probably find me on the golf course a lot more than the tennis courts.
That's a classic tennis player transition, tennis to golf. It's the easy one to make. Well, Bradley Klahn, appreciate you coming on. Best of luck as you continue your comeback on the court, and good seeing you around. Calling matches already a natural in the booth. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks a lot, Mitch.